Namaste.
Namaste.
I am Deepika Upadhyay, your host for today's episode. Today, we are focusing on a trend that's quietly shifting the region's balance, which is IMF bailouts. Pakistan, once again, has turned to the IMF for financial support. But beyond headlines, what does that mean for India? Are these bailouts simply economic lifelines, or are they reshaping South Asia's strategic landscape? Let's dig into what's really unfolding behind the scenes. We are honored to welcome Dr. Naresh Bana, a distinguished expert in public private partnership. Sir, we would like to know, what is IMF, its history, and how countries obtain assistance from IMF?
Thank you, Deepika ji. The collapse of gold standard in 1920s, which was due to the extensive military funding, and the nations had suspended the gold convertibility of their currencies and printed excess money. That led to excessive inflation, and in post-war attempts to reinstate gold standards at pre-war parity. That was being done by Britain, that time's superpower and the largest empire, in 1925. And due to that, the currency, the pound, was overvalued, and that induced deflation. The war had actually devastated entire European economies, leading to significant debts and the collapse of gold standard, which had earlier underpinned stable exchange rates. In 1920s and 30s, the countries frequently devalued their currencies to gain trade advantage, and that triggered retaliatory measures by other countries and eventually led to currency wars. This competitive devaluation eroded international trust, contracted global trade, and contributed to the Great Depression. The absence of a coordinated monetary framework exacerbated economic instability and hindered the recovery efforts. So eventually, there was no stabilizing mechanism left at that time for exchange rate and trade stabilization. For a stable international monetary system, the representatives from 44 allied countries met at Bretton Woods, and these nations, in July 1944, they decided to establish IMF, that is International Monetary Fund, to oversee a system of fixed exchange rates linked to the US dollar, which was made convertible to gold. Here it is pertinent to mention that while the Bretton Woods Conference established the dollars linked to gold, the system's inherent vulnerabilities and evolving economic conditions led to its eventual dissolution and the dollar's delinking from the gold in 1971, when then President Nixon of USA delinked the dollar from the gold reserves. It was also called as a Nixon shock, and USA never looked back thereafter. Essentially, the economic turmoil which followed World War I heightened the necessity for an institution like the IMF to foster monetary stability and support global economic growth. So it was a very wise step at that point of time in 20s and early 30s to set up this kind of mechanism. And it formally came into being on December 1945, when 29 nations out of 44, they ratified it, they signed the Articles of Agreement. And it officially started commencing its operations in March 1947, and its mandate included promoting international monetary cooperation, facilitating balanced growth of trade, and providing resources to countries facing balance of payment problems. IMF today has 191 members and plays a crucial role in maintaining global economic stability and fostering international economic collaboration. To put it simply, it is like a kitty party where members put in their subscriptions in a general pool and then they are authorized to draw money if they face problems. When facing balance of payment issues, a country can request financial assistance under various IMF programs such as standby arrangements or extended fund facility. These programs are subjected to conditionality, requiring the implementation of specific economic policies and reforms to address underlying problems and ensure loan repayment. Remember, IMF is the lender of last resort. So it lends with caution, with lots of conditions, so as to ensure they not only get their money back, but also help the country recover from adverse financial situation.
Thank you so much, sir. That gives us a solid foundation to understand the IMF's role. Sir, can you please throw some light on the governance structure of IMF?
Very right. Now, having understood how it was set up and how it functions, let me share with you that it has a hierarchical structure comprising the board of governors, the executive board, and the managing director. The board of governors of IMF is the highest decision making body, consisting of one governor and one alternate governor from each of the 191 countries. Typically, these are the finance ministers or central bank governors of those countries. The board meets annually to make key decisions on issues such as quota increase, special drawing rights, and amendments to the IMF's Article of Agreement. Then we have Executive Board, which is responsible for day-to-day operations, and the Executive Board comprises of 24 executive directors who represent individual countries or group of countries. These directors are elected by IMF member countries. Among the governance structure is the managing director, who is appointed by the executive board, and a renewable 5-year term is given. The voting power within the IMF is weight based on a quota system.
Thank you for that explanation, sir. It really helps us understand how the IMF functions from the top down. Sir, if I may ask, how many types of credit facilities are offered by IMF? What is their interest rates and repayment durations?
IMF has a wide variety of offers, and through various credit facilities, it assists the member countries facing balance of payment challenges and now other issues also. These facilities are categorized under the General Resource Account, that is GRA, for all members, and the Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust, that is PRGT, for low income countries. Within the GRA, we have standby arrangements. This is a short term support with typical duration of 12 to 18 months. It is extendable up to 3 years. Repayments are due within 3 to 5 years, and interest rates are generally around 6%. Then the extended fund facility, it is aimed at structural reforms of the government, of the fund seeking government, with durations up to 4 years and repayment spanning 4 to 10 years. It's longer term. And interest rates are similar to standby arrangement. Then we have flexible credit line available to countries with strong fundamentals, offering 1 to 2 years arrangements without a preset excess limit. Repayments are due within 3 to 5 years. Precautionary and liquidity line for countries with sound policies, offering 6 months to 2-year arrangements. The repayments are due within 3 to 5 years. And then we have rapid financing instruments, RFI, which provides immediate assistance with repayments due in 3 to 5 years. Typically, it has higher interest rate as compared to standby arrangements. As I mentioned, there are provisions for low income countries which are called Poverty Reduction and Growth Trust, and it has three type of facilities, that is extended credit facility ECF, which is a long-term reform with duration of 3 to 5 years, and repayments are due between 5 to 10 years, typically at 0% interest rate. Then there is standby credit facility, addresses short-term needs with duration of 1 to 2 years, and the repayments 4 to 8 years, often at concessional rates. Rapid credit facility is the next, which offers quick assistance with repayments over 5 to 10 years and at 0% interest rate. So if I just put it simply, the general resource account provides various facilities at interest rate ranging around 6%, and the poverty reduction and growth trust is primarily to help the least developed countries and carries 0% to minimal interest rate and for a longer duration. Deepika ji.
Fascinating breakdown, sir. Knowing the terms really helps us grasp the IMF approach of lending. Dr. Bana, we would like to know, we recently read that Pakistan has obtained IMF facility for some billion USD. We know that many times in past also, Pakistan has been helped. Can you throw some light on the history of Pakistan's bailouts in past and what triggered this situation now?
Deepika ji, Pakistan has been lucky with IMF many times, and it has been seeking assistance after assistance, and this is the 24th time since 1958, which reflects its persistent economic challenges such as fiscal deficits, low tax revenues, and political instability. The situation has been triggered by critically low foreign reserves, just 3.5 billion, barely covering a month's imports, and mounting external debt obligations exceeding 22 billion for fiscal 2024. To secure the IMF deal, Pakistan implemented austerity measures, including raising taxes by $750 million and increasing interest rates, the domestic lending rates, to 22%. The most recent bailout, it's a standby arrangement approved in June 2023, amounted to 3 billion over 9 months, aimed at preventing a potential default. Pakistan received 700 million USD in January 2024 and 1.1 billion USD in April 2024. Total 1.8 billion USD have been received by Pakistan against this standby arrangement till date. But that is not sufficient. That's not enough. In September 2024, IMF approved a $7 billion extended fund facility to support long-term reforms of Pakistan, and that started its 24th IMF program. They have already received 1 billion USD in March 2025 against this program and 2.4 billion in just last week in May 2025 against this program. Additionally, Pakistan has received 1.4 billion USD against Climate Resilience Fund from IMF in May 2025. This 7 billion extended fund facility and Climate Resilience Fund, as approved by IMF, are in addition to the 3 billion standby arrangement granted in June 2023. The standby arrangement was a short-term 9-month program aimed at providing immediate financial relief, while the extended fund facility is a longer-term 37-month program designed to support structural reforms and economic stability.
What a revealing look at Pakistan's financial journey. Clearly, there's a pattern worth paying close attention to. With so much of IMF assistance, what is the likelihood of improvement of economy of Pakistan in next 3 to 5 years, and how many and why so frequent?
You see, Pakistan's economic outlook, as has been reported by IMF and other agencies over the next 3 to 5 years, hinges on successful implementation of reforms under the IMF's 7 billion extended fund facility approved in September 2024. This 37-month program aims to stabilize the economy through fiscal consolidation, which means controlling their expenses, structural reforms, increasing a tax net, and enhanced revenue mobilization. However, there are challenges. The IMF has warned of elevated risks due to global economic uncertainties, geopolitical tensions, and domestic vulnerabilities. Political instability, a narrow tax base, and reliance on external financing remains primary concern. So while the IMF program provides a framework for recovery, Pakistan's economic improvement largely depends upon sustained reform implementation, political stability, and resilience to external shocks.
What do we say? When you bail out a state with a military first mindset, you're not just saving an economy, you're financing a doctrine. And that doctrine has consequences far beyond balance sheets, especially for India. What are the implications of recent conflict with India for Pakistan?
The recent conflict between Pakistan and India has profound implications for Pakistan's economy, political stability, and their overall regional standing. Firstly, let's talk about the economic impact. The hostilities have disrupted trade, closed airspace, and suspended the Indus Water Treaty, which threatens Pakistan's agriculture and energy sectors due to reduced water flow from Chenab River. These disruptions have strained Pakistan's fragile economy, which was showing modest recovery under a 7 billion IMF program. Rating agency Moody's has warned that prolonged tensions could derail economic growth and impede fiscal consolidation efforts, potentially undermining macroeconomic stability. Now, all that, when not happening in time, that is failure to abide by the IMF extended fund facility requirements, the conflict has raised concerns about Pakistan's ability to adhere to IMF program conditions. India has opposed additional funding to Pakistan, citing concerns over potential diversion of funds towards activities that could exacerbate regional tensions. This opposition could complicate future disbursements and strain Pakistan's access to international financial support. Then we have political and social repercussions. Domestically, the conflict has intensified political pressure and public dissatisfaction, particularly in regions like Sindh, where water shortage has already sparked protests. The government handling of the crisis may face increased scrutiny, potentially leading to political instability. And lastly, the regional and international repercussions. The suspension of Indus Water Treaty and military escalations have heightened regional tensions. Pakistan's international relations, especially with neighboring countries and global financial institutions, have been strained due to concerns over stability and adherence to international agreements. Overall, I see that recent conflict has significantly impacted Pakistan's economic recovery, jeopardized international financial assistance, and heightened political and regional tensions. Addressing these challenges will require concerted efforts towards de escalation, economic reforms, and diplomatic engagement.
Thank you for that comprehensive insight into the evolving dynamics between India and Pakistan. As this is the 24th IMF program for Pakistan, can you comment on how effective the current IMF bailout will be for Pakistan, and what if they are unable to repay again?
As I already said, Deepika ji, the effectiveness of Pakistan's 24th program hinges on its ability to implement structural reforms and maintain political stability. While the 7 billion facility approved in September 24 has provided temporary relief, the country's history of incomplete IMF program raises concern about long-term success. They face a substantial economic challenge, including a high debt burden and a significant external financing needs. The IMF has projected a 5 billion external financing gap for Pakistan between 2024 and 2027, which is going to further increase. And additionally, the country requires approximately 22 billion annually for external financing over the next 5 years, with 14 billion allocated for public sector amortization payments. You see, the failure to adhere to IMF programs could jeopardize future disbursements, as I said earlier, and strain Pakistan's access to international financial support. All that will derail economic growth and impede fiscal consolidation, potentially undermining macroeconomic stability. Please note, while the current IMF bailout offers a framework for economic recovery, Pakistan's ability to achieve lasting stability depends on sustained reform implementation, effective debt management, and resilience to external shocks. Conflict with India will surely have its repercussions in terms of less foreign direct investment, less agriculture growth, less exports, more expenses on repair and development of infrastructure, more defense expenditure, and an overall uncertainty. Overall, the IMF bailout may not work this time again for Pakistan as envisaged, and it is likely that Pakistan will be approaching IMF again as soon as the current extended fund facility period gets over or before 2027.
Dr. Bana, a very thoughtful, provoking analysis on the IMF program and itself potential consequences for Pakistan's economic future. That is it for today's episode. And as we watch economic fault lines deepens in the region, it's clear that India will need to navigate both opportunity and caution. IMF bailout might offer temporary relief to our neighbors, but they also carry long-term strategic weight. Will India adapt its playbook or risk being outmaneuvered on its own turf? We'll keep following these shifts closely. Thank you for listening. Namaste.
Namaste.